welcome to my channel. If you're dealing with a potential haunting or demonic activity in your home, it can be a frightening and unsettling experience. In this video, I'm going to share with you my personal experience of dealing with a devil in my house, and what I did to overcome it. At first, I was skeptical and thought that the strange occurrences in my home were just my imagination. But as things started to escalate, I knew that there was something much more sinister at play. In this video, I'm going to share the signs that I noticed that led me to believe that there was a demonic presence in my home. But don't worry, I'm also going to share the steps that I took to combat this presence and regain control of my home. From seeking out the help of professionals to performing spiritual cleansings, I tried it all. And now, I want to share my knowledge and experience with you. So, if you're dealing with a similar situation or are just curious about what to do if you encounter a devil in your house, then this video is for you. Get ready to be informed and empowered to take back control of your home. For years, I had heard whispers of strange happenings in my modest 3-room house, but I had never taken them seriously. Until one fateful day when I experienced the terror for myself. It all started like any other day, with a throbbing headache waking me up from a restless sleep. I dragged myself to the bathroom, swallowing half an aspirin and downing a glass of water before shuffling down the hallway to start my morning routine. But as soon as I crossed the threshold into the bathroom, I felt a shift in the air. A thick, suffocating darkness seemed to envelop me from all sides, pressing down on me like a weight. It was like nothing I had ever experienced before. As I stumbled through the darkness, my heart racing with fear, I suddenly found myself in a vast and opulent saloon. The walls were smooth and adorned, made of an unknown material that gleamed in the dim light. The overhead beams were massive, hewn from a dark rock that seemed to absorb any light that touched it. But the beauty of the room was quickly overshadowed by the horror that lay within. In the corner, I saw a figure bound and gagged, secured to an iron bar that ran through the wall. His skin was darkened by the sun, and his hair and beard were long and tangled. He looked to be in his 50s, wearing nothing but rough, worn clothing. I was frozen with fear, unable to move or speak as the realization set in that something truly sinister was at play in my home. But I knew I had to survive, to escape this devil living in my 3-room house. With trembling hands, I slowly backed away from the saloon, retreating back into the darkness of my hallway. And though the terror of that day still haunts me, I emerged from that ordeal alive and with a newfound respect for the power of the paranormal. As I stumbled back to my room, my heart was pounding in my chest. The darkness that had engulfed me moments before seemed to be following me, creeping ever closer with each step I took. I could feel the presence of something evil lurking in the shadows, watching my every move. As I finally reached the safety of my bedroom, I locked the door behind me and collapsed onto my bed, drenched in sweat. I could hear strange whispers echoing through the walls, and the sound of footsteps coming from the hallway outside. For months after that fateful day, I lived in constant fear, never knowing when the devil living in my 3-room house would strike again. But even now, years later, I still wake up in the middle of the night, paralyzed with terror at the memory of that otherworldly saloon. As I close my eyes and try to push away the memories of that fateful day, I cannot help but wonder what other horrors lie waiting in the shadows. The paranormal is a force beyond human understanding, and its powers can be devastating. So heed my warning, dear reader, and be careful when venturing into the unknown. For in the end, none of us truly know what evil lurks in the darkness, and we may find ourselves facing a fate far worse than we ever could have imagined. What do you think? Let me know in comment box. My next story is: it was a still and silent night, the kind where the world seems to hold its breath. I was in my bed, unable to sleep, when I heard the faint sound of a coffee pot brewing in the kitchen. It was odd who could be making coffee at this time of night. Curiosity getting the better of me, I slowly got out of bed and crept towards the kitchen. As I approached, the smell of fresh coffee grew stronger. But as I entered the kitchen, I saw no one, only the coffee pot on the counter, quietly brewing away. I started to feel a chill run down my spine as the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Was I alone in the house, or was something else here with me? I searched every room, but found no one. I returned to the kitchen and poured myself a cup of coffee, hoping to calm my nerves. As I sipped my coffee, I heard a faint whisper in my ear. The hair on my arms stood up, and I felt an icy cold presence in the room with me. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and I was surrounded by a thick fog. In the midst of the fog, I saw a figure, a dark, menacing silhouette moving towards me. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The figure continued to approach until I was face to face with it, staring into its empty, soulless eyes. Trembling with fear, I closed my eyes and prayed for the nightmare to end. When I opened them again, the fog had lifted, and the figure was gone. I was alone in the kitchen once more, save for the coffee pot still quietly brewing on the counter. As I sat there in the quiet darkness, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. And then I heard it. The sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from the direction of the kitchen. My heart pounding, I cautiously made my way to the doorway, and there, in the faint glow of the moonlight, I saw a figure standing by the coffee pot. It was hunched over, its face obscured by long, stringy hair, and it seemed to be muttering to itself in a language I couldn't understand. I never did figure out what happened that night, but I never made coffee in the middle of the night again. The memory of that haunting encounter has stayed with me, a reminder that there are forces beyond our understanding, lurking in the darkness, waiting to pounce on the unwary. My third story is, don't be scared, I know you. It was a dark and stormy night, and I was alone in my house. I had just gone to bed when I heard a faint tapping noise. At first, I thought it was just the sound of rain hitting my window, but then I heard it again. This time it was coming from my closet. I got out of bed and slowly made my way towards the closet. As I reached for the doorknob, I felt a chill run down my spine. I slowly opened the closet door, and there it was, a doll that I had long forgotten about. It was standing upright, staring at me with its glassy eyes. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But then I saw it move. The doll's head turned ever so slightly, following me as I backed away. I tried to convince myself that it was just a coincidence, but the doll continued to move, taking small steps towards me. Its limbs were stiff and jerky, like it was being controlled by an invisible force. As I backed away from the doll, I suddenly tripped and fell onto the floor. I looked up just in time to see the doll hovering over me, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. I scrambled to my feet and ran out of the room, slamming the door shut behind me. I could still hear the tapping noise coming from inside the room, and I knew that the doll was still there, waiting for me. I never slept in that room again, and I eventually moved out of that house. But the memory of that haunted doll still haunts me to this day. The memory of that haunting experience still sends chills down my spine. I remember waking up in the middle of the night to a faint rustling sound coming from the corner of my room. At first, I thought it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but as I focused my eyes in that direction, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The doll that had been sitting on my shelf was now standing upright, its eyes glowing in the dark. I tried to move, but my body was frozen in fear. I watched in horror as the doll started to walk towards me, its tiny feet making a soft tapping sound on the wooden floor. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I felt a cold breath on my face as the doll leaned in closer, its eyes never leaving mine. I could feel the fear building up inside me, and just when I thought it was all over, the doll suddenly stopped in its tracks. It turned around and started to walk back towards the corner of the room, where it had been before. As soon as it reached its original spot, it fell back onto its shelf, motionless. I spent the rest of the night awake, too afraid to move or even breathe. I knew that what had happened was not a dream or my imagination running wild. It was real, and it was terrifying. The next day, I tried to convince myself that it had all been a hallucination or a nightmare. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the case. Something had taken control of the doll, something that I couldn't explain or understand. From that day forward, I made sure to keep the doll as far away from me as possible. I even went so far as to throw it away, hoping to rid myself of the fear and dread that had consumed me. But even now, years later, I can still feel the weight of that experience. I can still hear the sound of the doll's tiny feet tapping on the floor, and I can still see the glow of its eyes in the dark. I often wonder what would have happened if I had stayed in that room just a little bit longer. Would the doll have taken control of me, or worse, taken my life? I'll never know for sure. But I do know one thing: that doll was not just a harmless toy, but a vessel for something far more sinister. And so I caution you, dear reader, to be wary of the objects in your own home. You never know what could be lurking in the darkness, waiting to take control of your life. Thanks for watching.